we do not believe it's forced upon them. We dig these people up and then go and baptize their skeleton. Relate what happened in the temple and what happened in the scriptures. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're having a great day, great night, my name is Brianna, and today we're going to be going over LDS Mormon temples. How do we get the dead baptized? How do we do work for them? What's happened in the temple? What's the story behind them? What's a little background? How do I feel about temples? We're going to talk about it. Let's get into this. So, I remember the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm going to be talking about our temples, Mormon temples, LDS temples, how you refer to it. Temples are a place of worship. Place of worship. We go into the temples to worship God, to worship Jesus Christ, and to do work for the dead, for ourselves. There's a lot of stuff that can happen in a temple. Our temples are structured after the biblical temples, the Temple of Solomon. Our work is based upon biblical teachings, biblical stuff, all that stuff. I think it's really cool how all the temple work happens. They're based upon stuff that's found in the Bible, in history. And yes, Joe Smith was involved. I'm helping Brielle to bring and that being restored, and I think it's really, really cool. I went through, well, let's do a little bit of background. So in the temple, we do a few different ordinances. Number one is baptism. Then we do initiatories, endowments, and sealings. Baptisms normally into the church. We're baptized when we're 8, or if you're a convert, it can be at any point. Even if you're born into it, you don't have to do it when you're 8. It's your choice, and I've heard of kids doing it later. Various reasons, either their choice or family member or situation, I don't know. It's still a choice. It's always a choice. And I've seen all sorts of things, and I think that's great. Like, it really should be a choice, and it should be whenever you feel ready to enter. So we first do baptisms for the dead in there, and one thing cool about any of these ordinances that are done for others in the temple is we do not believe it's forced upon them. When we're doing this work for these people, they have to accept it on the other side. So whatever reason, they can choose to do it, to not do it, it's all on them. Then after that, you have your initiatory and you have your endowment, which are kind of like the same because we receive them at the same time, but they're like done separately. And kind of how I think it's really cool about like each of these like ordinances that you receive throughout your life, like your baptism, initiatory, endowment, it's like the same exact stuff you're like promising overall to just be a good person and not kill and to live a lot of chastity and all that. And you kind of just build upon, but like each one, it's like you're committing to it further, and you're also receiving more blessings for that, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how it works. And then the sealing would be for getting married. So you get sealed to your spouse and to your children, and you all can live as a happy family up in heaven together. So that can either happen, like for me and my husband, we were married and sealed into the temple, and by us doing that, any of our children are involved within that bond. Now, if we decided to adopt, then we would go through and do the ordinance for our child and kind of have that. It's not like you're resealed, like a marriage, but they're like sealed to you. And that could happen for anyone. If people didn't get married right away or didn't get sealed in the temple, they can then go get married and those kids can be sealed to them. So if it doesn't happen right away, it can still happen later. So you're not forgotten. It's not too far gone. I will say too, if you ever get a chance, I highly encourage you to go through a temple before temples are dedicated and they become, they're set apart, dedicated, and then only people who, commit to live these standards and you're going to recommend can go into. So before that happens, there's always a tour. If there's one in an area, I highly encourage you to be able to go through because they are so special. I love being in the temple. People say this and maybe it seems like cliche, but you go in and everything else on the outside just falls away. Satan doesn't have power within those walls, and there's so much peace, and you can just really focus on what's important, forget everything out on the outside, and just be able to talk to God, to feel his presence. And you can have that anywhere, you can make anything holy. I know another great place would be mountains for me, and that's what we're told, like in the scriptures too, is the mountains are like a temple. And so there's that, but there's just something special about being in there and being into the temple, and it's so holy. Do we dig these people up and then go and baptize their skeleton? No, it's pretty easy. Like, we do a lot of family history. We I would say but we involve like everyone. You could go into Family History Center. There's such a big database, like family members. You can go in, find like their birth date and their name and details about them, and it's put into this big database, Family Search. And after it's into this database, and like anyone can search it up, we have people, and I've done so many of this, you go through records, usually they're paper copies, and you have to like type it up so then they're digital and they're easier to find, because a lot of these documents are very, very like old and hard to read, especially if you're searching into other languages. I don't know how people tell. I definitely cannot do other characters, and I know they're like the English language words. But they're all digitalized. We go in there, we take those names. They're found, either we can find them and then take them. If they're part of our family, that's one of the requirements, is they need to be part of your family. And so you do that. But also you can like search, or when you do these digital records, it will enter them in the system, and then they'll be connected to their family members. But that doesn't necessarily, if you're like typing everything in, doesn't mean like they're gonna go, you can go and do their work. They'll just enter it in a database. Another rule is they have to be over, I think, like 110. It has to be 110 years since they passed away. So you can't just be like, oh, my neighbor Joe died and now I'm gonna go and do his work. No, unless you have like written permission from his direct living descendants, you can't do that. So they have to be dead for 110 years before we can do work. So I know for me, it's harder. A lot of my family members do family history, and so a lot of our immediate work has been done, but I've still been able to go back and find stuff and do a lot of these names, and it's been really, really special that way. It's always more special when you take an actual family name and do it that way. I know it was really cool. So my maiden name's Seago. My dad, we had this whole thing about like when they came to America, they changed their name, and then they joined the church for some reason. They changed again. I guess they didn't change the name. They changed the spelling. So there were like all these like weird spellings as we're like going through, especially because I think they're from like Northern Europe, England, and they're very, very poor, and they just no one knew how to spell. So it's like all over the place. So when I was able to take those names with my maiden name before I was married, it was really fun, because you have it like a little paper and it says Sister Seago, and then you have like your card, and it's really, really special that way to be able to do that work. So you can be baptized when you're 8, but doing work for their like baptism for the dead, you can't do until you are 12 years old. I think like now you can do it 11, but it'd be like the year you're turning 12 that you can go through. So not when you're 11, but like the year you're turning 12, starting in January, you can do that. Remember how special it was when I was going through, and how cool, and I think especially when you're a teenager and there's so many voices and struggles, and you're going through so much insecurities, and be able to go to the temple, so many different struggles, and be able to go to the temple and really just feel so peaceful and close to God. And it's one of those things I would love for just everyone to be able to experience, to be able to go into a temple, to feel God's presence. Because there's so many spiritual and so many cool moments I've had outside of the temple, but in the temple just takes the cake on how close you can feel to God, and just such a surreal experience that unless you're there, it's really hard to fully describe what you're feeling when you're there. I think it's just so special because, like, especially as I study the Bible and study the scriptures and being able to read them and then correlate what happened in the temple and what happened in the scriptures and realize how you can do the same thing that they've done hundreds, thousands of years ago, you can do now, and how special that is. But I'll just really re-emphasize what I said at the beginning. If you ever get a chance to go into the temple and tour it, that's great. And if you can't, and you have a temple by your area, there's like a desk, and you can't go beyond that desk without a recommend. But you can still go on the temple grounds, and there's still a really cool spirit around there too when you're on the ground. God talks a lot on the grounds too. I've had many times when I haven't been able to go in and I can go there. But also there's usually a greeting area before, some chairs. And if you go in there and say, either you can just go in there and just sit and talk, or if you just say to the workers and just say, hey, I just want to sit here and just listen to the spirit, that's totally fine. And I think you're going to put a big smile on their faces, and they'll be totally welcoming to you if you go in there. So you can also do that too. If the temple's in your area, you're not able, they've already been dedicated. So I just encourage you to get that a chance. And this was just a little bit about temples, a little history, background, how special they are. So hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please let me know down below which temple you've been to. Maybe there have been multiple. You don't have to list them all if there's been a lot. But yeah, hope you guys have a great day, great good night. God bless.